Welcome everybody. Pete Sobey, our videographer extraordinaire, thought it might be a good idea for me to interview Larry Gillick, since I asked him to give us a gratuitous homily every weekend while we're in the midst of this pandemic. So Larry Gillick, SJ, is it true that the SJ stands for soft job?
It's true in some people's minds, unless you are a Jesuit and you know that it stands for Society of Jesus. In Latin, it's Societas Jesu, but in the original Spanish, it's La Compañía de Jesús, the companions of Jesus. But when they took that into Latin, companions became society. I could give you the whole history of that if you'd like.
Well, if we have time, we can.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So a lot of people have also asked, so why did I reach out to you? And so the history, from my recollection, it goes back to like 28 years ago. I was a newly ordained priest, and I was looking for a spiritual director. And I called you up, and you said yes to taking on a baby priest, snot-nosed, newly ordained priest for the Archdiocese. And so I just want to say how grateful I am for you saying yes to that.
You're very welcome.
Saying yes every year since then. But it was during one of our early sessions that you shared with me that you had just been uninvited at a parish where you were connected week in and week out, and how much you enjoy and appreciate and desire having that parish connection.
Yeah, because I'm at a university, at Creighton University here in Omaha, dealing with kids and faculty, but as we say, not with the real people. And so I was at a parish, and the pastor just uninvited me. They just said, your services aren't needed anymore. So that was painful. I had been there 5 years, every Sunday. And
I went home and talked to my pastor, who reached out to you, and Father Pat McCaslin.
Yeah.
And so when I would go back and visit St. Leo's, I would always let people know, I loved it here, but probably the best gift I ever gave you was inviting Larry Gillick to come and say Mass for you all. And then when the pandemic hit, you were no longer able to go out to St. Leo's. And
no, in our diocese, I don't know about other people, but priests over 65 or 70, because we're so vulnerable health-wise, that we're not allowed to say Mass in a public parish church. Painful.
Yeah. So I thought once again I would take advantage of the opening and take advantage of the opportunity that this technology gives us.
It's amazing, yeah.
You mentioned earlier about how hard it is to preach to a camera.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Well, because I'm a person who's blind, I use verbal reaction, laughter, or I can hear them, and I know that they didn't walk out yet, and that they're following me. To do it to a camera is you got to get used to it and just do it because it's the right thing to do. It's a good thing to do.
Yeah. I couldn't help but think about how challenging it must be for you, because I have gotten to know your sense of humor over the years. In the first homily I heard, you said something, I don't remember what it was, but I was laughing out loud, and then it just dawned on me. It's like, oh my, you're not hearing anything. So Now, personally, I listen for that as well, but I typically hear the groans, and then that means to go on. So
It's when they start walking out that you got to worry.
yes, exactly. Yeah. So your blindness, Larry, can you share how did that come about?
It's a good question. I was, it was the afternoon of the last day of school for the summer, going to a Catholic school in Milwaukee, where I was from. And I was sitting, well, like this. I was sitting, there were stairs going down and there were arms going out. And I was sitting on one of the arms, it was about this wide, maybe this wide. And a friend of mine was sitting on the steps and I was dangling my feet. And we were fooling around, happened to be out of school, and he jokingly pushed me and I lost my balance, so I fell over backwards. And at the bottom of the stairs there was a sidewalk that went around to the back of the house. So I hit my head on the sidewalk. And that was 1948, and they didn't have the x-rays to see that a blood clot had developed on the brain between the covering, the dura. So it was a subdura hematoma, and it was putting pressure on the brain. I had headaches all that summer. And then the most amazing thing was, and people can look it up, in 1948, they had a polio epidemic. And so school started late. Instead of right after Labor Day, it started on the 25th of September. And so, when you're going blind slowly, you don't know it. So when I went back to school, of course, I was the first person that Sister asked to read, and I couldn't read. It was the first time I realized that there was something wrong. So on the 1st of October, all summer we'd been going for x-rays and stuff. So on the 1st of October, my dad took me to a brain surgeon and he saw it. That was on a Friday, the 1st of October, 1948, and the first operation was on Monday, the 4th. So that's how I lost my sight, little by little.
How old? How old were
8.
you? 8.
Yeah. So that's how it happened. See, there's some funny terms though. When did I go blind? In my spirituality, it's not when did I go blind, but when did I receive it? Which is the difference between, a time thing, a chronos, and a grace thing. When did I receive it? Probably every morning. Every time you bump your forehead, you receive it again. But the process of receiving blindness is one thing. The other thing that I have worked hard in my own mind against, and other people, I'm not a blind person. I'm not a blind priest, a blind Jesuit. You don't start by defining yourself by an adjective. If you do, then that's your definition of yourself. Are you still a person? Yeah. Am I still a Jesuit priest? Yes. That's more important in my living than defining myself and walking around under the umbrella of poor me, I'm blind. I don't define myself that way, and I don't live that way. We do tend to live according to what we name ourselves.
Yeah. You've amazed people over the years, I know, with some of the things that they find you doing,
Yeah.
like running, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And I know for myself, the first time I gave you a ride in my car, I was giving you a ride back home when you lived at Campion House, and you were giving me directions.
Yeah. Well, I have a very good memory. I have to get around. And when I came to Omaha, I want to know the name of the street and the name of the street before that street. So when people say, well, where do you live? Well, but the street before it. So direction and memory is really important. Running it's funny, that doesn't, I tie a string around somebody else's elbow or wrist and running. You know, my ministry is a lot of sitting in my office and directing, so I have to. Ignatius had a thing called preserve the instrument. You know, take care of the instrument of grace that your body and your spirit are. So take care of your body and take care of your spirit. Don't do things that are bad for your spirit either. But take care of your heart, take care of your muscles. So I run, you know, because it's a way of preserving the body that God gave me.
Yeah, so you give us all a great example. You've been a great example for me in spiritual direction all these years and in helping me come to insights about myself and in the relationship. It all starts with the relationship with God.
Yes.
And then the relationship with others.
That's right. Yeah. You know, it's funny. People don't know it, but the way they relate, the way we relate with others is the way we relate with God. You'd say, no. God is more supreme. No, as for you, you are one relational unit. For instance, if you're withdrawn or shy or inquisitive, right now I'm teaching 2 courses. One is for students, seniors, 22-year-olds, and I'm teaching a course for faculty. And it's amazing how different students are from faculty. Faculty are all in their head. Well, that's the way they relate. And they relate with God that way, analyzing, arguing, weighing, but keeping a distance. The kids are right into it, you know. So it's one of the ways that people can understand. You know, some people find intimacy difficult. It's frightening. Well, of course, then intimacy with God is going to be the same way. So you relate the way you relate, and don't. It's not good for us to say, "Well, I gotta be this way with God." No, that you gotta be the way you be. So that's an important thing in our relationship with God.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you already shared with us how, you know, the receiving of blindness. Yeah. How about helping people receive a pandemic? What can we do?
I'm working on that myself. One of the things is I even prayed about this morning. Whatever complaint I have, whatever restriction, you know, my ministry is really, I can't say Mass at a parish, I can't go off and give retreats. I can't relate with the kids except through Zoom, you know, and all that. However, what keeps me from feeling sorry is how sorry I feel for people who are losing their jobs, their families, their sense of themselves. They're losing loved ones, young and old. People cannot visit grandparents or parents in retirement homes or hospitals. People can't accompany the dying. Get off your pity pot. God, I can still breathe. I can still run. But everybody knows that. Everybody knows someone who is suffering worser. So keep that in mind. But on the other hand, I don't put myself down for feeling bad. That's healthy to have proper human emotions. One of my big things in life is, myself and with others, is we got to be appropriate human beings. To be spiritual, I think it was St. Thomas Aquinas said, you can't have a spirituality without a body. We're not angels. Angels don't have spiritualities. Struggling to be an appropriate human being, is it appropriate to feel bad for yourself? Yes. Shouldn't just say, well, take a slug of grace and you'll be all right. No, it's to feel bad. And people say, well, don't feel bad. That person died, but he's in a better place. Nonsense. I want to feel bad because it's appropriate that I feel bad. I miss that person. It's a heartbreak. Can't I have a heart and be a spiritual person? Sure. It's maybe spirituality is how you live with your humanity. And how do you live the tension between your humanity and grace? How do you live being a human being and a believer? There's a tension there. How do you live with that? Well, these are tough times. All over the world. Everywhere we get emails and phone calls from people all over. Nobody's got it easy. So, does that help? Yeah, but I still feel bad that I can't go off, do stuff like I used to. Come on, vaccine. I pray for the people that are making vaccines. Come on, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm not cutting my hair until we have a vaccine. So
how can you hear me?
It's getting really, really tough.
I'd get a haircut, but Don Dahl is my barber, and I don't want to risk it in case.
Oh boy.
I have to be on video or something.
Yeah, this is one way to get people to pray for the vaccine.
Yes.
So they see my hair.
Yeah.
And yeah. Let's.
The birds flying in and out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When this all started, I was watching a Creighton basketball game. That's when the pandemic became real to me, because the game stopped at halftime. And the next morning, during my prayer time, I was still upset by that.
Yes. Something that was yours was taken away.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I just prayed, okay, God, help me not to just focus on what I'm going to miss.
That's right.
But help me be open to what opportunities you have in store.
There you go.
And then Pete Sobey comes along, and he opened up the world basically to our parish, and
sure.
And then we reached out to you, and you said yes. So I just isn't it always it's that paradox. It's just like yesterday the cross, and today the Our Lady of Sorrows. I was talking about that paradox. It's always
when something's taken from this hand, what's going to be offered in this hand? And it might not be the very same day. But as Christians and Catholics, we We put our hand out to receive the Eucharist as a pledge to receive other ways that the giver is giving. That's hard. That hand is empty right now. She's gone. He's gone. They're gone. There's no basketball game tomorrow. Yeah, but what's there? Maybe our spirituality right now is waiting for what's coming. Maybe we're having Advent early.
Yeah, the time of waiting. Yeah. It's been a long Advent. One of the things you've really helped me with over the years is when I throw those pity parties for myself, right? And it might be appropriate to have, bad, sorrow and
Right.
I miss this and that.
That's right.
But I think when I tend to have a pity party, I close myself off. And I isolate, and I just focus on what I'm missing, and that's where we, right? It's a process of, yes, being authentic to who and to how we're feeling,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
But then to open ourselves.
Yeah, and to be patient with that opening. It might take a while. I don't trust a spirituality that paints over or washes away or clears up the human experience. Jesus came to embrace the human experience, his and ours. So, we're slow.
Some of us more than others.
Yeah. So we used to say about our football team, we're small, but we're slow. How's the team? Well, we're slow. We're slow, but we're getting there. God, the great thing is that God waits. He's always kind of working on us, but doesn't violate our feelings and our pity pot. And he said, okay, that's appropriate. And I'll give you grace, but not to get off your pity pot too quickly. Reverence your humanity, reverence your pain and your sorrow or your regret. Reverence it. Let grace come. There's a funny way, but let grace come naturally. It's supernatural, but let it come according to your nature.
When the first homily after you offered it to us, Pete Sobey says, "Wow, did you hear that? Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
He was way better than you." And he was really trying to get my competitive nature going.
Oh, yeah.
And I just said, you know what, Pete? I'm competitive, but not when it comes to this. Okay. First of all, I know that, if it was a gunfight, you're bringing a gun, I'm bringing a knife to the fight. But no, it's just, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for your yes.
Well, that was the funny part. I could not figure out what you were doing.
How it was going to be delivered.
The very first thing I thought was that because you have 3 masses here, that you were going to give the homily for one and I was going to give the homily for the other. And it wasn't, for a little while I figured, oh, this is dessert.
Yeah.
This is something. Yeah. And I said, and that is Dave Korth's way. What can be most available for the most of his people? And that's why people have loved you at every parish you've been at, and they're so fortunate here to have you because you'll do anything for the people of God. And we've talked about this in spiritual direction. We don't serve God. We serve God's people with God, who serves God's people through us. God is not sitting doing nothing. God is always creative and active, and uses us to serve God's people. So whatever we can do, I do some writing, you do some writing, speaking, whatever, listening to people. We're not serving God. So that, you know, it's a good thing to do. I really, really enjoy the fact that the homily is being signed.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh. What, in some ways, I do it a lot in my spirit because I know Julie is going to be, you know, as fascinating to people as Braille is. It's real easy. It's all mathematics. Signing, that is amazing. And that you have that for a part of your people who are not at this parish.
Right.
But it's what are you doing? You're serving God's people. So I want to do that.
Yeah, isn't it? It's kind of amazing that all the doors that this whole thing has opened up.
Yes.
There's a little girl, I don't know if you heard that story, but a 4-year-old who had never been able to experience Mass with sign language before. It was the first time. And so her mom sent messages to Julie from the little girl, and so every once in a while Julie will sneak a message back to her.
Oh my gosh, what a good thing.
Yeah. It's really, it's amazing, isn't it? How God will continue to knock us over the head until we open up.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. In preparing the homilies and giving it, I try to imagine. I try to speak in the concrete, so that there are gestures for it. You know, not to go off and. I don't live in the clouds very much, so I can't talk about stuff in the clouds. But
no, but you describe things in such a unique way. The words and the phrases that you use. Oh man, and Julie loves it.
Does she?
Because it's part of the art.
Yeah.
It's part of the art, so it's not just mathematics.
Yeah.
The words you use are not. It's an art, and it's it's.
I don't know that.
Yeah.
It's good. I don't know what I do. I just do. I just be who I be. Yeah. You got nice bells there.
Yeah, and no one can figure out how to shut them off or when to turn to change the timing of them.
Oh, is that right? So in daylight saving time, it might be 10 o'clock, but it's 11.
Right. And when we moved the start of Mass from 8:30 to 8:15, somewhere right in the readings, we'll get the bells. So
it reminds the people that they're in church.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. So a lot of people are wondering if this is how God is trying to get our attention, you know, the pandemic and the wildfires and the earthquakes and the hurricanes, et cetera, et cetera. So how do you answer that?
It's a sin to walk past anything the color purple. That's the nature of that movie and that book. God does not send something specifically, now this will work. He sent creation and he sent Jesus. I don't believe that hurricanes are sent as a punishment, which some people have said. That any tragedy, God deliberately sent that to you to get your attention. No, God is, see, people who love each other, they come to the other, the beloved, the way the beloved gets come to. Okay? If you know that book, The 5 Love Languages. Some people like to be touched, some people like to get gifts, some people like to have deep conversations. Okay, if you like deep conversations, I'm going to talk to you insofar as I can go as deep as you want. God comes to us according to God, who is love and aggressive, in the good sense of aggressive, and comes to me according to me, and comes to you according to you. What we have to do is be available to how do we get come to. You say, well, I read Mother Teresa, or I read Teresa of Avila, or Dorothy Day. I read these people, I should be like them. No. When we get to heaven, there's a story, you know. We expect God, this mysterious, to say, why weren't you more like Jesus? No, he's going to say, why were you not more like who you are? Why did you falsify yourself? So it's about being come to. So how does God get my attention? If the hurricane gets my attention, that's a good thing. But God didn't send it. God sends me grace to receive what's being given. So there's no punishment. You know, there are some Christian religions that say, okay, you know, homosexuality, that's a curse. That's God's punishing people, or that there's a hurricane that's all those people in Louisiana, or fires, you know, that'll get their attention. They'll become more religious out in the Northwest. No. You know what's going to happen? When the people say, what's going to happen when we get back to the normal? We're not going to change much. God gets our attention for a little bit by giving us grace to be attentive to what's around us. But God doesn't send us. God didn't ask me to receive blindness because he was punishing my dad for having been an alcoholic. That was nuts. That's not religion, that's voodoo or superstition or stuff. The pandemic is a natural consequence of nature, biological natures colliding. Now, I get the grace to respond to it, or not. I reject it. I'm angry all the time, I storm around. Yeah, that's my nature.
Oftentimes I hear people say, everything happens for a reason. And I say, well, that might be true. I don't necessarily doubt that, but it doesn't do me any good to approach it that way, right? Because I'll never know for sure what comes after that, if that was the reason, or if something else is the reason. I always like to approach it as everything happens, and it's an opportunity. I think that's kind of what you're saying. It's an opportunity to be closer to God, to journey closer with God, or it's an opportunity to turn away from Him.
That's it. Yeah. I must tell you a funny story, and I've told this. I was out at the Omaha airport, and you got to go through security, and so I'm standing there by the vesting table, they call it, getting dressed again, and somebody bumps into me, and this quiet feminine voice, young voice says, "Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry." I said, "For what?" She said, "Well, I interrupted you." And she didn't know I wasn't dressed in my sin-fighting shirt. I was a sweater. And I said, no. I said, you know, all interruptions are invitations. She said, what? I said, yeah, you interrupted me, but but it's an invitation to talk to you or to fool around, or maybe we could become friends. Who knows? But it's an interruption that I find as an invitation. She said, I've never heard anybody talk like that. I said, well, to be honest, I haven't heard anybody talk like that myself. So she said, well, can I walk you to your gate? So I had my guide stick. And so she said, tell me more about this. She didn't know I was a Jesuit or a priest. And she said, I'll walk you to your gate. She said, what, you really believe this? I said, yeah. She said, well, do you have some stories of interruptions? I said, oh, yeah. So we get to the gate, and she says, and it's quiet for a minute. She said, now you really believe that all interruptions are an invitation? I said, I do. She said, that's good, because they just canceled your flight. And they did. She said, well, I don't know what you're invited to, but I got to leave. I said, well, I was invited to have fun with you. But then we're in line, and a guy says to me, are you a salesman? And I said, yeah. He said, what do you sell? I said, Jesus. He said, are you a priest? I said, not only that, I'm a Jesuit. So we got to talk for 2.5 hours, and he got talking about his failed marriage and how can he fix this, and he got it fixed up. We corresponded. Maybe she interrupted me that I could be invited into his life. Did God set that up? No. God doesn't make things happen, except God gives us the grace to be attentive to what's happening. What we say, there's more going on than is going on. And grace wakes us up. Or we can not wake up.
Well, I am grateful that
Yeah, you're welcome.
you have said yes, and that you've just allowed people to get to know you a little bit better, and I hope you'll continue to say yes to offering you these. And you know, I'm not sure when the churches fill back up again. We're still going to be online.
Oh, are you?
Yeah, we're in the process of getting a TV screen that we can wheel out here and give the people that are here your homily as well. But by then, hopefully, you'll be able to come back and join us in person.
That'd be great.
At that time too.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Well, thank you for inviting me. Glad that we're doing this for the people of God.
Amen.
That's all I'm interested in.
All right.
I like what Pope Francis said, who am I to judge? Who am I to judge that you're a real Catholic? How do I know I'm a real anything? I'm a real human being, and by being a real human being, I'm inconsistent. The history of the Catholic Church is a history of inconsistency, as well as consistency, of fidelity and infidelity, from the Pope down. So for someone to say you're not a real Catholic, if somebody said to me, you're not a real Catholic, I'd say by that statement, I'm not so sure you are either. You're not a real Jesuit because you're not a real Packer fan. You're not a real Nebraskan. Who's to say what's real? So let's not be judging one another lest we be judged. I think somebody said that one time.
I think so, yeah. And I think we have all kinds of opportunities to try to bring people together, right? I mean, we have enough in our society that shows us that people want to push us apart. I think as a real Catholic, we're called to pull people together.
Yes. You know, people want to find out, this is heavy stuff. People want to find out who they are by who they're not. You know, at least I'm not from Iowa. Or at least I didn't go to this. No. Don't Don't find out who you are by who you're not. At least I'm not that. Now, who are you? And don't, as they say, why divide? Well, then you can say, well, but didn't Jesus say go out and teach all nations and everything? Yes, but very compassionately. He embraced everyone. The Samaritan woman, the leper, anybody who was distant, he didn't push him out. Become receptive and compassionate. How's that for an answer?
It's a great answer. One final thing I thought of, sorry.
How many final things do you have?
The lady at the airport, she said she's never heard anyone talk like that.
Yeah.
A lot of people say about you they've never heard anyone talk like you do. Where do you get it from?
My dad. My dad was an Irish lawyer, and he was good with words. My mom gave me, my mom was very loving, and she was more poetic. I think my dad, his poetry went up as far as roses are red, violets are blue, that was about it. But he was very humorous and creative. And I'd say that, and I'd say in the Jesuits, one of our charisms is proclaiming the word, and to try to speak the words that people will understand. I think I talk in images out of blindness. I think that's a gift, because I have such an imagination of what a thing is. And maybe I talk to people as if they were blind too. I don't know. Not spiritually blind, but physically blind. So I talk. But I don't, Pete, I have no idea how I talk. When people say, I don't know. I don't listen to myself. I don't listen to these homilies, you know.
Well, you just have this way of like, I gotta listen to this. Like you could, I don't know, you could be reading the Farmer Almanac and it's like, oh, I gotta listen.
I think it's because I might say something funny, because I have a sense of humor and I'm creative that way. I listen a lot to books and people speaking, and I pick up images. So I speak in images, but I think I speak what's going on. I speak because I don't see their reaction. What I say is not determined by your reaction. I like to hear people in church. I like to hear people laugh or something, but I offer it in hopes that they can receive something. So I don't know how I talk. I just talk.
Well, good, very good. Thank you all for tuning in one more time. And Pete, is that a wrap?